Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Welcome back to my channel, my Loverlies. If you've never been here before, thank you so much for clicking on my video. I am so happy you found me. I do so hope that you will like and subscribe before you leave. Become part of the Mama family. Mama's got your back, at least where makeup's concerned, and definitely when that makeup is cheap. Today is True Love Tuesday. We're talking about Lana Turner today. This is such a good story, y'all. Her story is very reminiscent of Miss Elizabeth Taylor's. It is quite epic. If you've never been here for True Love Tuesday before, I sit here, I tell you an epic love story, and I do my makeup. I don't usually talk too awful much about the makeup that I'm using, but I will list everything that I talked about or that I used in today's video in the description box below, along with the tags to all my other social medias, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all that good stuff. I did film a TikTok on today's eye look. If you guys are interested, definitely go check it out. I used the Glamlight X Chucky Crazy in Love palette. This thing is one of my all-time favorite Glamlight packagings. It's just absolutely insane. I love it so much. I am a Chucky stan. This is what the color story looks like. Absolutely gorgeous. I really love the contrast between the deep kind of grungy maroon gray tones next to the super bright neon yellow. I think it is very fun. It does maybe look just a little bit crazy right now, but I think once we get the whole face done, it's going to mesh together really beautifully. And again, if you want to check out how I did today's eye look, just click the link in the description box and it'll take you right to the TikTok. So moving on to the good part of today's video, Lana Turner. Y'all, she was so unlucky in love. I feel so terribly bad for this lady. I don't even know what to say about it other than she tried and she tried and she tried and she tried, and it just seems like she did not have very good taste in men. She didn't have very good taste at all. If you guys see me looking over in this direction, it is because I am referencing my notes. There are quite a few of them for today's video, so I'm going to go ahead and assume that today's video is going to be a little bit of a longer one. I hope that you have a little while to sit back, relax, hang out with me for a minute, and let's just kind of dive into the story. So, from the beginning. In the beginning, there was Julia Jean Turner. So she was not born Lana, she was born Julia, and she was born February 8th, 1921. And she, over the course of her nearly 50-year career, she achieved success as both a pinup model and film star. She was quite a renowned actress. She was probably one of the top earners for MGM Studios of her time. Was known for her highly publicized personal life. In the mid-1940s, she was one of the highest paid actresses in the entirety of the U.S. And one of MGM's highest earning starlets, with her films bringing in more than $50 million for her studio, which is, especially back then, a butt ton of a butt ton of money. She really was quite fantastic. And if you don't know who Lana Turner is, she was kind of known for her platinum blonde hair. She was known as this kind of like a video vixen, but she had a sort of innocence to her and a sort of naivety that just was very compelling. She was just really pleasant to watch. I highly recommend that you go check out a Lana Turner movie because there are many. So Lana was discovered at the age of 15, and I had never known how she was discovered. I just kind of assumed that she went to Hollywood to become an actress. But no, she was discovered at the age of 15 while purchasing a soda at the Top Hat malt shop in Hollywood. So she's from California. So she is discovered, and she's discovered by a director who was under contract with Warner Bros. So she was signed to a personal contract by Warner Bros. Director Mervyn LeRoy, who took her with him when he transferred to MGM in 1938. Now, she and Mervyn worked together for a very long while, and again, he's the one that discovered her. And back then, the way that movie like contracts and things like that worked is basically once you signed your contract, it's like the studio owned you. You were under contract to that one specific studio, and you were only allowed to make films for that one specific studio. It was like the studio owned your talent, and then they would loan you out to other studios to do other movies, and they would get a piece of the pie, right? So when he transferred to MGM in 1938, she made her film debut in They Won't Forget. When she was discovered, Mervyn envisioned her as a replacement for the recently passed Jean Harlow. And could you imagine trying to fill the shoes of Jean Harlow? I mean, you guys have got to know who Jean Harlow is. She is absolutely, genuinely unforgettable. One of my very, very favorites. And of course, Jean Harlow was a sex symbol for her time. And the thing that kind of bothers me a little bit is they're taking this 15-year-old girl, and she's not even legal yet, and they're envisioning her taking the place of this complete and total, this grown woman's shoes. No, notoriously known to be a sex symbol, right? So I don't understand. I just don't get it. You see this 15-year-old girl and automatically equate her to Jean Harlow. I just don't get it. It seems like a bit much. And I think this is what kind of set her up to fail, really, because she was so highly sexualized at such a young age. She never really got to quite understand how men and women were really supposed to interact with each other. She never quite was able to learn what a relationship is really supposed to be built on. I feel like she used sex not only as currency, but also as a weapon. And I also feel like sex was her only worth, right? Her only worth was how attractive she was. And that is still very much a part of the equation, even in 2023. I just feel like it's super, super wrong. But I digress. So, they wanted her to fill the shoes of Jean Harlow. Excuse me. And they began developing her image as a sex symbol at 15. She embodied an innocent sexuality. She represented the girl who would rather sit on the diving board and show off her figure, the girl who would rather kiss than condemn. And she'd rather kiss than commit, right? She wasn't judgy. She was supposed to be the every girl, the girl next door, the kind of like she was up on this pedestal, right? She was the one that all the boys were, all the girls were trying to imitate. All the boys wanted, that kind of thing. In her early films, she was actually a natural redhead. She actually had natural auburn hair. And in her early films, like the redheaded, in her early films, you can see that she had that really gorgeous auburn redheaded kind of hair. But she ended up going through a little bit of a makeover and dyed her hair to the platinum blonde that we all kind of associate with her now. And then she wore the platinum blonde hair pretty much for the rest of her life. She was billed as the redheaded sensation that brought it back to the screen. When she first arrived in Hollywood, she was something new, and she was very much Hollywood's new plaything. She was absolutely everywhere. She was on magazine covers. And of course, she started out small when it came to movie roles, things like that. She started out small, but she actually was a very good actress, and eventually, very, very quickly, really, her roles went from small-time bit parts to being the lead, the star of the show. Now, Lana's platinum blonde hair, which she wore for much of the remainder of her life, became her trademark look. So, moving on to Lana's romantic life, y'all, and it is an absolute doozy. I hadn't had any real understanding of her love life, even though it was so incredibly publicized. I just hadn't really realized the immensity of her paramour list. But in her life, she was in 77 relationships. When I found out that little tidbit, it kind of blew my mind a little bit, because I was thinking about the fact that how many relationships have I been in? And y'all, I've been in two, like 2 or 3 maybe, but I met my husband when I was so young that I never really had a chance to do anything else. Not that I'm complaining, because the dating scene out there is just really not something I want anything to do with. But I couldn't imagine dating or being in relationships with 77 different people. How do you not lose hope? She never did. Well, not till the very, very end. But it just seems like having to restart 77 different times is just an awful lot. I just feel like that could get just about anybody down. She was a trooper, though. So Lana was married 8 times to 7 men in her lifetime. And again, was in a total of 77 relationships. Let that truly sink into your brain. Really think about the immensity of being in 77 relationships. Where do you find the freaking energy for all that? I just don't think that I could do it. So, first relationship number 1. We're not going to go through all 77 relationships, just the bigger ones. Relationship number 1 was Wayne Morris, who later became a fighter pilot hero in World War II. He was her first Hollywood crush. That was in 1936. Then in 1937, she actually was set up with Ronald Reagan. And when Sean came in here the other day when I was doing this research, and he saw Ronald Reagan's name, he had no idea that Ronald Reagan had started out as an actor. And I thought that was kind of wild. But yes, Ronald Reagan was indeed an actor, and was a very good one, very famous actor at that. And then, of course, went on to become a politician, president, things like that. But he was her first studio arranged relationship. And if you didn't know, the studios were very, very involved in their properties' love lives. And all of it had to do pretty much with reputation. It had very much to do with image. The studios were very concerned with their starlets and their stars having a very they just wanted everything to be very all-American, very clean. They wanted you to have a squeaky clean kind of reputation. Even if you were a sex symbol, they still wanted you to be very wholesome, very traditional American values, that kind of thing. And of course, when two very publicized figures, when they've got a big following, I think movie studios still do that to this day. You find out that 2 of your favorite actors are dating, and you kind of get all excited, and you're definitely interested, right? So I think it was a smart move on, MGM's part, but they set her up with Ronald Reagan, and they just went on a few dates. I think, again, it was more of a publicity stunt than it was anything else. They just went on a few dates. I think they went horseback riding, something of that nature, but it never really escalated any further from there. And of course, Ronald later got with Nancy, and then that was who he married. But she did date him she dated him for a very short while. They just went on maybe 2 or 3 dates, horseback riding. Didn't go beyond a few horse riding outings. Then in 1938, Lana made Love Finds Andy Hardy with Mickey Rooney. I do not like that man. And I try really hard not to judge people because, again, we don't know the full story. But when I learned this little tidbit, I was like, who do you think you are? So Mickey Rooney actually spread some really horrible rumors about Lana. He later claimed that he took her V card and she ended up preggo, which resulted in her having to terminate the pregnancy. Lana, vehemently denied this. She staunchly denied this. She said that this definitely was not true. But Mickey was dead set on the fact that it had happened. Nobody really knows the truth of that, but everybody is pretty sure that, the general consensus is that he was just doing it for clout. Mickey Rooney was, we're going to do a story time on him probably a little bit later, just because the more I find out about him, the less I like him. But he spread some pretty awful rumors about her, none of which were true. But of course, this had a big impact on her career, on her life, because, of course, men back then, and still men now, everybody was inclined to believe his word over hers. So that really had a fairly large impact on her career at that time. And it was something that kind of followed her around for a good long while. So after she does Love Finds Andy Hardy, in 1938, she meets Greg Boutzer. So it's much more likely that the notorious lady man, Greg Boutzer, he was an attorney to the stars, very well known in Hollywood, very well connected. It is much more realistic that he's the one that took her V card when she was around 17 years old. Now, I still think that it is amazing to me that she was allowed to remain as intact as she was and that she was left alone as long as she was, because again, she was kind of set up to be this thing that everyone wanted. But Lana, if there was nothing else that I learned about her, Lana knew her own mind, and when she wanted something, she went for it. And she was very free-spirited when it came to, she was not a prude in any way, shape, or form. And I think that's another thing that kind of lent itself toward the rumors and things that were started about her. Because again, she just wasn't a prude. She live and let live, love and let love. She was very much do what you want to do. So she definitely was into Mr. Greg and lost her V card to him at 17 when he became the first serious love of her life. He was her first serious relationship. He was the first one that she had picked for herself and really allowed herself to have an intimate relationship with. And she went on to have love for him for the rest of her life. Unfortunately, she found out that he was sleeping with Joan Crawford at the same time. So again, just didn't work out for her. She got her heart broken a little bit, but she was not somebody to be walked all over. So the very minute she found out that he was two-timing her, she said, "Pack your bags and go, we're done." And he got out. She ended the relationship right then and there. She was not here for it. The next one, that was in 1938. Then, in 1939, she had a couple of what I would say are standbys. And this is kind of a new concept for me because I had never really heard of anyone really doing this. But when I think about it, we all have that one person, women, I think people in general, all have that one kind of person that we love and have genuine affection for, but they're not kind of like our first choice. So we kind of keep them on standby just a little bit. And for Lana, that was Robert Stack. Now, Lana dated Robert Stack on and off from 1939 to 1945. She dated him many times. Anytime she would break up with someone, anytime she would be in between relationships, she went right back to Robert. I think Robert was pretty much a safe space for her. He definitely had more feelings for her than she did for him. And he was always willing to just kind of come in and be her savior a little bit. So she dated him on and off very, very seriously. Well, not seriously, but very often for quite a few years, many times ending with the culmination of the Second World War. He usually managed to catch her between serious relationships, always hers, never his. I feel like he kind of waited around for her, and then once he realized that it just wasn't going to happen for them, he kind of moved on. He got tired of waiting on her. He was always kind of like the backup boyfriend, always on standby, and I feel like he just got tired of waiting around for her to just decide to be with him already, so he kind of moved on. Then in 1940, immediately following an argument with Mr. Boutzer, because again, she kind of kicked him to the curb, but she kind of had dalliances with him a little bit after that. But in 1940, after an argument with Greg, she had had enough. She was done. He had stood her up for a date. They were trying to kind of rekindle things a little bit. And he had decided, oh, well, yeah, I'm not coming. So she was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm done. You can go live your life somewhere. I'll show you. You don't want me? I bet you there are a million people out there that do. So she went out. She definitely found someone that wanted her, and again, just made a really, really terrible choice. Immediately following an argument with Greg, who had stood her up on a date, Lana dashed off to Las Vegas with band leader Artie Shaw. And this would end up being a very, very big mistake on her part. Lana had met Artie before and didn't particularly like him. So it wasn't because she was romantically inclined toward him in any way. It was a revenger. It was a revenge thing. She was like, you don't want me. There are a million people out there that do. It's your loss, buddy, right? So I don't have anything on my teeth. So she goes out and she's like, okay, well, I'm going to take a trip with this guy and you can sit there and you can pine after me. So they take this long road trip to Las Vegas. And on the way, Artie is just kind of talking about his views on life, his kind of, what does it say? He discussed his philosophy on life and she fell in love with him. And so she says, right? So she says it doesn't work out for her, and they really weren't compatible at all. So she didn't particularly like him. They go on this road trip, and she decides, oh, I love this man. I really do. He is the one for me. So they married the exact night that they showed up in Las Vegas, and this didn't go very well. They divorced 4 months later after quickly discovering that they literally had nothing in common at all whatsoever. They were very, very different people, and it was a momentary attraction, not even an infatuation. It was a momentary attraction, and it faded very, very quickly. So they got married and then divorced 4 months later after quickly discovering they had nothing at all in common. But she was, by this point, pregnant, and she ended up she was pregnant by him, but he doubted that he was the actual parent of her child, so she terminated the pregnancy, which is something I don't agree with, but you got to do what you got to do. I just feel like she made terrible choices, and every time she made these choices, I just feel like she was hoping that this was the one. I feel like she was hoping that this was the one that was going to make her happy. This was the one that was going to be her forever, and she would set up life. She would start building her happy family, and everything would just kind of fall to pieces, and then she really wouldn't have a choice, right? Because back in the days, you couldn't. It was not okay to be an unwed mother, things like that. So she really didn't have any choice but to terminate the pregnancy, right? So 1941 rolls around and Lana dates Victor Mature. Prior to the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor in December of 1941, but their romance was short-lived because he met and fell for Rita Hayworth. And, we all know who Rita Hayworth is. She was another insanely beautiful, incredibly talented woman in Hollywood. And the more that I kind of learn about these old Hollywood relationships and how people kind of interacted with each other, the more I kind of realize that Hollywood is a very, very small place. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody dates everybody. It's kind of crazy. So he falls for Rita, so the relationship is over. Then in 1941, just after Victor Mature, she meets Tony Martin, just after he divorced Alice Faye. They met while filming Ziegfeld Girl, and their relationship developed so quickly that they were actually briefly engaged. And honestly, they hadn't even known each other for 6 months at this point, and they were already engaged. Lana kind of liked to move fast. I don't think that she thought too awful much about the decisions that she made. I feel like she was a very impulsive woman and just kind of went with the flow. If it felt right, she did it. So they quickly got engaged, but it fizzled out very shortly thereafter. They didn't make it to the altar, though, and Tony went on to marry the gorgeous Sid Charisse in 1948. 1941 to 1945, Lana's love of music was one of the things that briefly attracted her to Artie Shaw. Remember, because he was a band leader. She definitely had a thing for musicians. Who doesn't really, right? So Lana's love of music was one of the things that had briefly attracted her to Artie, and during the war, she enjoyed late-night jam sessions with a lot of well-known musicians. She ended up dating quite a few musicians, actually. She enjoyed spending time with Buddy Rich, Benny Goodman, and Tommy Dorsey. Well, the most serious of all of these kind of very short romances was with drummer Gene Krupa, who was going through a very messy divorce at the time. And she would have married him, but his love of smoking ganja apparently was a big deterrent for her. So she was definitely into him, but she had standards, and she didn't want to be with a no good deadbeat, right? So he was kind of like, she enjoyed spending time with him, but I can't get over it. I don't want to be with a drug user, right? So she's like, no, thank you. 1941, again, when Lana joined Robert Taylor to make Johnny Eager, sparks really began to fly. She really, really, really enjoyed Robert Taylor. Sparks really began to fly. Cast and crew were astonished to see both actors engaged in seamy love scenes, both on screen and off. So they would be filming, the chemistry would be totally off the charts, and then it would just kind of carry on to after wrap up. But the unfortunate thing about this whole thing is that Robert Taylor was married. He was married, and he was married to Barbara Stanwyck, nonetheless. So, and of course, word gets around in Hollywood, and somebody spilled the beans that things are beginning to be a little bit inappropriate on set. So what does Miss Barbara do? But she grabs her pearls, she gets her purse, and she goes right up to the studio, and she was like, you need to back off. You need to back off. You need to take a step back. You need to leave my husband alone. And what does Robert Taylor do but say, he comes up to Lana. He was like, I will drop her like a bad habit. All you have to do is say the word. He says this to Lana. And Lana was like, no, thank you. She's like, no, thank you. You're fun, but you're not, I don't want you. And of course, like, I feel like, again, she just wants what she can't have. I think as soon as any man became to be too accessible to her, she just kind of wasn't interested anymore. Continuously just wanting, I think she enjoyed the chase. I think she enjoyed the romance and the adventure of it all. I think she enjoyed new love. New love is always so much fun, but it just, she wasn't interested in an actual relationship with him. So she said, no, thank you. And of course he went back to his wife. After that, in 1942, Lana and Gene Montgomery were an item a year before he married singer Dinah Shaw. 1942 again, there is no doubt that Lana and Frank Sinatra were lovers while he was married to Nancy and after he was married to Ava Gardner. But she says Lana always vowed that she never did anything with Frank while he was with Ava, because of course her and Ava were really great friends. But you never can be too sure. She had dalliances with Frank for a good long while, on and off for a great many of years. Then in 1942, again, we have Stephen Crane. And Stephen Crane ended up being a pretty big part of her life. He met Lana in 1942. They dated briefly, then again, Lana moves quick. They wed in July. Stephen's divorce from his first wife wasn't even yet finalized when they actually got married. And this ended up being a pretty big problem for them. And then by that time, she finds out that they're not legally married, but by that time she's pregnant. So what does she have to do? She has to go get an annulment. She has to wait for his first marriage to be, for his divorce to be finalized. And then she has to go back and she has to remarry him, because she was not going to have a child out of wedlock. There was a big stigma back then about, bastard children, is I guess what the technical term is for it. And she was not going to have a child out of wedlock. She didn't want to have an illegitimate child. So she goes and she remarries this man, but already at this point, she knows that he's not going to be her forever. She's already pretty much over him. She literally just remarries him so that her daughter can be legitimate. So that's what she does. She remarries him, has her baby. And then they divorced in August of 1944. She remarried him in July of 43, pretty much just to save her daughter from the stigma of being born out of wedlock, then divorced him in August of 1944. Then, not very long after she gets divorced from Stephen Crane, Lana dated Austrian actor Turhan Bey, and I think that's how you say his name. Please forgive me if I'm mispronouncing it. But she meets and immediately is pretty much infatuated with this Austrian actor. He was very, very attractive. very much her type, and things pretty quickly get hot and heavy, and for a while, but his mother didn't approve, and he was compelled to end the relationship. So he definitely, like, he could have been the one for her, but he was pretty much a mama's boy, and his mother didn't approve of her, basically because of her reputation. Not only her reputation, but her status as a sex symbol. I guess the mother wanted her son to marry a quote-unquote good girl. So he listened to mommy and he ended the relationship. But shortly after his okay, for a while, but his mother didn't approve and he was compelled to end the relationship. 50 years later, he ran into Lana at a party and informed her that she was the love of his life. Now, what does this woman have to say to this man after 50 years? 50 years ago, this man had the chance to be her forever. He had the choice to either pick her or his mother. And he chose his mother. And she says, "Oh, you loved me, did you? Obviously not enough to defy your mother." And then she kind of flips the hair, drops the mic, and walks away. So I'm sure that gave him quite a bit to think about. But it's true. Like, if you loved me, as much as you said that you did, you definitely wouldn't have just dropped me like a bad habit because your mother said I wasn't a good enough girl, right? Obviously, that's not true love. Then in 1946, Lana linked up with Tyrone Power. And for Lana, Tyrone is the one that got away. Tyrone is the one that Tyrone was the one that she genuinely wanted. She wanted Tyrone with every fiber of her being. She wanted Tyrone to be her forever. There was an insane amount of chemistry, and the reason I think that she wanted Tyrone as much as she did is because Tyrone didn't want her. And I think it's so sad because she literally would have given up everything for this man. But unfortunately, it didn't work out that way for her. Shortly after she met him, shortly after his divorce from Annabella Power in 1946, very soon after, Lana wound up pregnant and desperately wanted to marry this man. And but Tyrone wasn't so super keen on being a father. I just don't think he wanted to be tied down to Lana. I just don't think he was as into her as she was to him. I think Tyrone was basically the male version of Lana. I think she saw a lot of herself in him. And I think maybe the pregnancy in this situation was just a little bit strategic. I feel like she was trying to lock him down and he just wasn't having any of it. So she desperately wanted to marry him, but Tyrone wasn't keen on fatherhood. So Lana promised him she would terminate while he was away on a prearranged 12-week tour. Now, actors usually, they still do. They go on tours to promote movies, things like that. So he is booked to go on tour, and she informs him before he leaves that she's pregnant, and he's like, "I am not ready. I am not ready to take that step with you yet. You need to take care of things." So she does. She takes care of things, and on his return, learned that she had been seeing Frank Sinatra, and again, she was on and off with Frank for a good long while. But things with Tyrone were just not meant to be. So Tyrone gets back and finds out that she's been kind of seeing Frank Sinatra on and off, kind of behind his back, really. And he tells her, "You know what? That's great. That's fantastic, because I have fallen in love with Linda Christian." Yeah, Linda Christian, whom he later ended up marrying. So Lana just really wasn't the man for him, but she continued to say that he was the love of her life. He was the one that got away, and if she had any regrets in her love life, it definitely was not being able to kind of work it out with him and see where it might have gone. So he was the one that got away, but she's okay. She moves on. And then in 1947, Lana was briefly involved with Peter Lawford. She was briefly involved with him in the late 40s, but he was far more in love with her than she was with him. And again, I guess he was just too available for her, and she just wasn't interested. I will never understand the psychology behind that. I will never understand wanting what you can't have. I mean, I understand having crushes on people and being sad if they don't necessarily work out for you, or, you know, pining after someone. But I just don't understand intentionally kind of, what is the word I'm looking for? I won't understand intentionally overlooking situations that could have been really great for you just because, oh, well, he wants me and I just don't want to. I just don't get it. But he was very much in love with her, but she wasn't having it. She wasn't interested. So she kind of sent him on his merry way. Then Lana married in 1948. Lana married millionaire Bob Topping, and this could have been a very good match for her, but unfortunately, again, it just didn't quite work out that way. After he showered her with expensive gifts and pretty much love bombed her, I think that he genuinely was very much infatuated with her, at least in the beginning. He lavished her with expensive gifts, and then they embarked on a lavish 5-month honeymoon. And she thoroughly loved the lifestyle of the super rich for a while. Then she had a miscarriage in 1949 and divorced him in 1952. I guess it kind of got old for her. She just wanted the adventure of it all. She didn't like to be in one place for too long. And when things started to get kind of stagnant, she wasn't going to be complacent. She wasn't going to settle down and just be a housewife. And I'm assuming that that is very much what Bob wanted from her. And then the miscarriage was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back, and she just kind of ran away. Understandable. But then in 1951, at a Marion Davis party, Lana split with her then lover, Fernando Lamas. And this one is one that was just like, whew. So she split with her lover, Fernando Lamas. He was a volatile Latin and was her co-star in The Merry Widow. Now, Fernando was an extremely jealous man. And he was and Lana enjoyed the male gaze. She enjoyed the attention, and he just wasn't having it. He wanted her all to himself, and she was basically like, I can do whatever I want to. I don't have to listen to you. Now, at that party, a man came up to her and asked her to dance, and then, of course, she accepted, and Lamas kind of blew his lid. He blew his lid. Like I said, he absolutely was not having it, and he actually ended up having a violent altercation with said person who asked her to dance. And this, she broke up with Lamas right then and there. Now, at that dinner party, this is just a little tidbit for you, because I thought it was super interesting. So at that party, of course, there was a seating chart, things like that. And at that party, they were seated with 2 other couples. One of those couples being, who was it? Lex Barker and Arlene Dahl. Now, the man that had asked her to dance was Lex Barker. And, of course, it did not go well. But she actually ended up, after she broke up with Lamas, she actually ended up going on to date Lex. And then Lamas ended up going on to marry Arlene. So they basically just traded spouses. And again, it just kind of drives home the fact that Hollywood really is just a very, very small place. And everybody knows everybody. Everybody dates everybody. I thought it was a funny little kind of tidbit. So, of course, she enters into a relationship with Lex Barker. And this ends up being really, really awful. Genuinely awful. So she enters into a relationship with Lex Barker, and, you know, people can be really, really good about hiding who they actually are. And he completely and totally duped Lana. So in 1952, Lana begins dating Lex Barker, and he became her 4th husband a year later. Now, after losing her 3rd baby, Lana was told by her mother that Cheryl, so she had gotten pregnant and then ended up having another miscarriage, which was completely and totally heartbreaking for her. So after she has this miscarriage, Lana's mother comes up to her and she tells her that her daughter Cheryl, now remember, she had a daughter, she had a child with, who was it? Stephen Crane. She had a child with Stephen Crane, and it's her only daughter, her only child at this point. And her mother, Cheryl's grandmother, Lana's mother, comes up to Lana and says, we need to talk, and proceeds to tell her that Cheryl came to her and told her that Lex was being inappropriate with her and that Lex made her feel uncomfortable. And then it finally basically came to light that Lex had been assaulting her for a while now. And Lana lost her crap. She lost her crap, as any mama bear would do. Lost her crap. Now, she immediately goes up to Lex and tells him to get out. Get out. And she didn't say anything why. She didn't say why. She doesn't give him a reason as to why she wants him out of the house. She just says, pack your stuff and go. Now, if for any reason Cheryl would have been lying about this accusation, Lex kind of took all doubt and threw it out the window the minute he said, whatever your daughter told you, it's a lie. Now, when had Cheryl's name ever been uttered? When had any kind of reason? It could have been that Lana was just over him and just wanted him out. But no, the first words out of his mouth were, whatever your daughter said, it's a lie. So, again, that just kind of confirmed everything that had gone on. And, of course, the relationship was over after that. Was being abused by Lex when Lana ordered him. It's a lie. And of course, Cheryl's name hadn't been uttered at that point, so she knew that he definitely had done it and that Cheryl was not lying. I just feel so bad for this woman. 1955, she enters into a brief kind of entanglement with Richard Burton. And of course, Richard Burton is the on-again, off-again paramour of Elizabeth Taylor. And Richard Burton wrote that he had seduced Lana while they filmed The Ruins of Ranchipur. But that was neither confirmed nor denied. 1958, while making Another Time, Another Place in London, it was rumored that Lana and co-star Sean Connery were involved off-screen. Now, if you guys didn't know, I named my son after Sean Connery. Sean Connery is the epitome of everything I want a man to be. Like, he was absolutely beautiful. He was chivalrous. He was actually a good, decent freaking human being, and so incredibly handsome, and that voice and that crooked smile, everything about Sean Connery just kind of gives me butterflies in my tummy. But she was in a little bit of an entanglement with Sean, her boyfriend. I'm sorry, my allergies are being crazy. I can't breathe. Okay. Were involved off screen. Now, Lana's boyfriend at the time, Johnny, his name was Johnny Steele, certainly believed the rumors, and he ends up packing his suitcase and turning up on set to challenge Sean. Like, how dare you, basically, that kind of thing. Sean was not having it. He was not having it. He took one look at this sorry excuse of a man, and who was sitting there being all big and loud, trying to challenge him, basically. And then onlookers on set said that Sean knocked him out with one punch. He didn't even let him get a full sentence out. He didn't even let Johnny get a full sentence out. He just kind of reared back his arm and went, shh, and Johnny went, good night. So I thought that was super, super funny. With a single punch, he was flat on his hiney. 1957, Lana began a relationship with a man who called himself Johnny Steele. And this ends up being another big boo-boo in her dating life. I feel so sorry for her daughter. So, with a man who called himself Johnny Steele. By the time she learned his real name was Johnny Stompanato, she was deeply involved with him, and things from that point just got worse and worse and worse. So, more than once he was physically violent to her. He was physically violent to her daughter. She found out that he was actually a bodyguard. He was actually part of the mob. He was the bodyguard of Mickey Cohen, big time mobster back then. And he was trouble. More than once he beat her. He laid his hands on her, and it all just kind of came to a head. So at Easter 1958, he was to unalivement in Lana's bedroom. Now, Cheryl was charged with his unalivement, but the unalivement was deemed to be justifiable homicide. Basically, it was self-defense, and he was known to be very physically, verbally, mentally, just super abusive to whomever. It really didn't matter. He didn't discriminate. So it was fairly easy to kind of clear Cheryl of the charges, especially since she was so young and, you know, there was a history of assault and abuse there. But many speculate because it happened in Cheryl's, or not in Cheryl's, but because it happened in Lana's bedroom, many people are of the opinion that Cheryl just kind of took the fall for her mom. Cheryl fessed up to the charges, but it was really Lana who had done it because she was tired of getting hit on. We will never know, but the only thing we can really do is speculate, but it is a distinct possibility. 1959, Lana's fifth husband was an amiable guy. She went on, she was like, I need a nice guy. I've been with movie stars, I've been with lawyers, I've been with just about everyone. I just need a good, nice, normal guy. And that's what she picks. His name was Fred May. The couple lived together for a year before marrying in 1960. They got along well, but they divorced in 1962, and nobody seems to know why. I think he was gay. She found out that she was his beard, and she was like, okay, see you never. 1965, Robert Eaton was 10 years younger than Lana when he became her sixth hubby in 1965. Her friends thought he was just an opportunist. Everybody basically knew that he was just there for her money, but she wasn't going to listen. He made her feel young. You know, he was 10 years younger than her. She's starting to get up there in age at this point. She is, you know, used to being a sex symbol. She is used to being wanted. And I think that it was easy for her to believe the lie because that's what she wanted to do. He made her feel young again. He made her feel special and important. Now, it actually did not end well for her. 10 years younger than Lana when he became her sixth hubby. Her friends thought he was an opportunist, but she wouldn't listen. That is until she returned home from making a movie and found him in bed with another woman. They divorced in 1969. Now, her last relationship was in 1969 to Ronald Dante. And again, he was another younger man. He was another one that was basically there to help her relive her youth. He was a long-haired motorcycle rider who worked as a nightclub hypnotist. Lana made him her seventh and final spouse. Now, probably because he made her feel young, but he also stole her money, and they divorced in 1972. And that's basically the end of Lana's love life. She lived the last 20 years of her life basically alone. Her life was considerably less dramatic, though. So I think the trade-off was a pretty fair one. She did continue to work. She made a couple of appearances on a show called Falcon Crest, but her health began to fail, and she was diagnosed with throat cancer in the 90s. That she then died in 1995 at the age of 75. So guys, we've been here for almost an hour. I'm sorry. I tried to get through it as fast as we could. I think Lana Turner's story is really a fascinating one. I just feel so bad for her. She tried and she tried and she tried, but she never could find the one. I just feel like she had really horrible taste in men. And I feel like the thing that she spent her life searching for, she never really could find it. And I feel real bad for her. But it makes for an incredibly interesting story. I did not get to finish my face, but for the most part, it is done. I really, really, really love this foundation. I talked about it in my skin tints for summer video. This is the CoverGirl CG Smoothers hydrating makeup. I have mine in the same shade 725. Looks really beautiful on the skin. I will, of course, finish my makeup and post finished pictures over on Instagram and Facebook. I'll have the links for everything in the description box below, along with all the products that I used in today's video. If you are not following me on all my other social media platforms, you definitely should go do that. I post fun content every single day, and if you're following me everywhere, you don't have to worry about missing a single moment of it. Guys, I love you so, so very much, and until next time, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and remember, you're important. Bye.